26 goals, 14 assists, one 5'7" magician. For nearly 2 decades, Lionel Messi turned Real Madrid into his personal playground. They spent millions trying to stop him, but every plan failed. But here's what makes it insane. Real Madrid knew precisely what was coming. Time after time, Lionel Messi ripped them apart. Some of those players probably got PTSD. How did one player make the world's biggest club look so small?
It's the best. The best is Messi.
In the next 20 minutes, discover how Messi didn't just beat Real Madrid, he redefined what it means to dominate. Chapter 1. The first warning. Picture this. Camp Nou, March 2007. The stands are heaving, 98,000 fans packed into the concrete cathedral of Catalonia. Real Madrid have come to Barcelona, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Spain's biggest rivalry, El Clasico, always carries weight. But this night, the story wasn't about Ronaldinho, or Raúl, or even the La Liga title race. It was about a teenager, a 19-year-old with shaggy hair, a boyish face, and a frame so slight you'd swear he'd be bullied off the pitch. His name? Lionel Messi. This wasn't the Messi we'd come to know. No beard, no armband, no aura of inevitability. Back then, he was still just the kid everyone called the next Maradona. Talented, sure, but still raw, still unproven against Madrid's best. And Madrid weren't bringing tourists. Fabio Capello's side was stacked with Galacticos. Raúl, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Guti, Roberto Carlos, Sergio Ramos. Men built for big nights. Men who thought they'd seen it all before. But they hadn't seen Messi. Not like this. The game began in chaos. Madrid struck first through Van Nistelrooy, the predator in the box. But Messi answered instantly, darting into the penalty area, snapping up a rebound, and smashing it past Iker Casillas. 1-1. A warning shot. Moments later, Van Nistelrooy scored again. Madrid back in front. The Camp Nou groaned, but then Messi did it again. This time he cut inside from the right, dragging defenders with him before rifling a left-foot finish across Casillas into the far corner. 19 years old, standing toe-to-toe with Galacticos and refusing to flinch. 2-2. And the game kept spiraling. Ramos, Roberto Carlos and Helguera tried everything. Kicks, grabs, shirt pulls. The plan was simple. Rough him up. Teach him the Clasico isn't for kids. But Messi wasn't intimidated. Every time they kicked him, he got up. Every time they dragged him down, he asked for the ball again. It was as if pain didn't register, as if defiance was stitched into his DNA. Then came the moment that turned the night into legend. It was the 88th minute. Madrid were leading 3-2. Victory was seconds away. Then the ball broke loose near the box. Messi collected it, shimmying past a sliding challenge. Ramos lunged in. Too late. Another touch, another feint, another Madrid defender crumbling in his wake. Then came the left foot. Bang. Top corner. Hat-trick. Barcelona 3. Madrid 3. Camp Nou erupted. 90,000 people leaping as one, screaming into the night. The teenager had done it. A Clasico hat-trick against Madrid at 19 years old. You can just feel Capello on the touchline, arms crossed, lips tight, his Galacticos humbled by a boy. Casillas slumped on the turf, shaking his head. And in the stands, even Barcelona's fans couldn't quite believe what they had witnessed. That night wasn't just goals on a score sheet. It was the first warning, the first sign that this kid wasn't just a talent, wasn't just the next Maradona. He was something else. A player who, for the next decade and a half, would turn Real Madrid into his personal victims. Madrid walked away thinking they had survived. They hadn't. They had just witnessed the beginning of their longest nightmare. That 3-3 at the Camp Nou felt like a prophecy fulfilled. Messi had announced himself to Real Madrid, not as a prospect, but as their eternal problem. And just 2 years later, Messi would return to the Clasico stage, no longer a boy with shaggy hair, but a weapon sharpened under Pep Guardiola. What came next wasn't just humiliation, it was domination. Chapter 2, the 6-2 Massacre, 2009. 2nd May 2009, the Santiago Bernabeu, the crown jewel of Real Madrid. This was supposed to be a fortress, a cathedral of Galactico power, a place where Barcelona were meant to bow their heads. The title race was alive. Madrid were chasing, Barcelona were leading, and this Clásico was billed as Madrid's chance to claw its way back to the very top. For the first 15 minutes, it looked like that prophecy might come true. Gonzalo Higuaín rose in the box, unmarked, and powered his header past Valdés, 1-0 Madrid. The Bernabeu erupted. White shirts swarmed the corner flag, fists clenched. This was the script. Madrid striking first, Barcelona finally about to be humbled. But here's the thing, against Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, one goal wasn't a lead. It was bait, because within 4 minutes, the mask slipped. Thierry Henry darted in behind, calm as ice, and slotted the equaliser past Casillas, 1-1. The Madrid roar turned to nervous chatter. Then Carles Puyol, the captain, the heartbeat, the warrior, thundered in a header from a set piece, kissing the captain's armband in front of Madrid's ultras, as if to say, "This is our house now." And then came the kid. Lionel Messi. Guardiola had unleashed something Madrid weren't ready for. No longer tied to the right wing, Messi was now a false nine, drifting into midfield, pulling defenders out of position. Cannavaro followed, Pepe stepped up. But every step they took toward Messi left a canyon of space behind them. And Xavi, with surgical precision, carved those spaces open again and again. By the 33rd minute, Messi was in. A run from deep, one feint, and Casillas beaten. 1-3 Barcelona. From 1-0 Madrid to 1-3 in the blink of an eye. The Bernabeu didn't just go quiet. It was stunned. Sergio Ramos tried to spark life with a header to make it 2-3. The crowd found its voice again. Briefly, Barcelona weren't rattled. They were merciless. Henry, again, slicing through the chaos. Then Messi ghosted into the box for his second. And finally, Gerard Piqué, a centre-back by name only, rampaged forward and slammed in the sixth. 6 goals at the Bernabeu. But the humiliation wasn't just on the scoreboard. At one moment, Messi stopped dead on the edge of the box. Stood still. 4 white shirts surrounded him. Ramos, Cannavaro, Gago, Marcelo, all staring, twitching, guessing, none daring to commit. And with a casual flick, Messi walked past them. Not ran, walked. 4 Galacticos frozen in time, powerless against a 21-year-old kid. That image of Messi standing still while Madrid's stars circled him like frightened statues became the photograph that still haunts them. It wasn't speed, it wasn't power, it was humiliation by simplicity. This wasn't a football match, it was an autopsy. Every Madrid solution only created new problems. Press high, Henry ran in behind. Sit deep, Xavi and Iniesta passed them to death. Foul Messi, he just got up, demanded the ball again, and carved them open once more. By the 80th minute, Madrid's fans weren't angry anymore. They were broken. Players in white jerseys jogged, hands on their hips, eyes on the floor. The scoreboard read 6-2. But the real wound was invisible. The aura of Bernabeu dominance, shattered by a boy who was supposed to be the next Maradona, but was already more than that. That night, Messi didn't just score twice or assist twice. He dismantled Real Madrid inside their own cathedral. He turned their fortress into rubble, their fans into ghosts, their players into statues. The world didn't see a rivalry that night. They saw inevitability, and Madrid learned the worst truth of all. This was only the beginning. But if 6 goals at the Bernabeu felt like the ultimate humiliation, the following year Messi and Barcelona would deliver something even crueler. Chapter 3. The 5-0 Humiliation. 2010, November 29th. The Camp Nou under floodlights, glowing like a cathedral of anticipation. Outside, Catalan flags whipped in the wind. Inside, 98. 0 voices rose in unison, waiting to see if Pep Guardiola's Barcelona could withstand the self-proclaimed Special One. Because this wasn't just another Clásico, it was Mourinho's return. Months earlier, he had embarrassed this same Barcelona side with Inter Milan. He parked a bus so immovable it might as well have been cemented into the San Siro, grinding out the Champions League semi-final and knocking out Guardiola's revolution. Madrid believed They had found their saviour. If anyone could suffocate Barcelona's magic, it was him. For 20 minutes, it almost worked. Ronaldo charged down the flank. Ramos thundered into tackles. Madrid pressed high, snarling, snapping. Mourinho's blueprint was obvious. Don't let Barcelona settle. Don't let Messi and Xavi breathe. But here's the thing about trying to choke Barcelona. The tighter you squeezed, the faster they slipped free. The breakthrough was cruelly simple. A loose rebound fell to Xavi. Most players would have blasted it, not Xavi. With the composure of a man playing in his backyard, he lifted it delicately over Casillas. 1-0. The stadium erupted like a thunderclap. Mourinho's plan hadn't even finished unfolding, and already it was unravelling. Minutes later, it got worse. A sweeping move, triangle slicing Madrid apart, ended with Pedro sliding in at the back post. 2-0. Suddenly, Madrid weren't pressing anymore. They were chasing, and chasing Barcelona was like chasing smoke. Every time they lunged, the ball dissolved, reappearing somewhere else in a blur of red and blue. The humiliation only deepened after half-time. Messi, who hadn't scored a goal all night, was orchestrating the entire destruction. At one moment, he literally stood still on the edge of the box, the ball glued to his feet, as 4 Madrid players circled him, twitching, waiting, afraid to commit. And with one sly flick, he split them open, launching another Barcelona wave. Then came the avalanche. David Villa, twice in 10 minutes, exploiting Madrid's suicidal high line. Messi fed him with passes so precise they looked scripted. 3-0, then 4-0. Casillas screamed, his arms flailing in desperation. Ramos pounded the turf with his fists. Cristiano waved his arms in disgust at teammates who couldn't live with the tempo. Madrid weren't just losing, they were unravelling. And then the final dagger. In the dying minutes, substitute Jeffren arrived at the back post and buried Barcelona's 5th. 5-0. The Camp Nou shook. The scoreboard didn't just mock Madrid, it branded them. But the most brutal moment wasn't a goal at all. It was the collapse of Madrid's discipline. Sergio Ramos, tormented all night, finally snapped. He hacked Messi from behind, shoved Carles Puyol to the ground, then slapped Xavi across the face as he stormed off with a red card. It wasn't leadership, it was surrender, the violent frustration of a team stripped of its pride. The papers called it La Manita, the little hand. 5 fingers for 5 goals, a symbol that would live forever in Clásico folklore. But the truth went deeper. This wasn't a football match. It was a manifesto. Guardiola's Barcelona, anchored by the truly special one, Lionel Messi, had ripped the mask off Mourinho's Madrid, proving that tactics, grit, even the self-proclaimed special one himself, was powerless against perfection. The Bernabeu was supposed to be where Madrid asserted dominance. Instead, the Camp Nou became the graveyard of their pride. And yet, if a 5-0 humiliation felt unbearable, Madrid hadn't seen the worst. Because the following spring, Messi would drag the rivalry onto Europe's grandest stage and deliver a performance so cruel it left Mourinho staring into the night, defeated in his own house. Chapter 4. The Champions League, Semi 2011, April 27th, 2011. The Santiago Bernabeu again, but this time, the Clásico was about Europe, the Champions League semi-final. The grandest stage in club football, and the stakes were unbearable. But for Barca and Messi, 2011 was also different. Lionel Messi was no longer the teenage prodigy who had just announced himself in 2007, no longer the 21-year-old breaking ankles in the 6-2 massacre. By now, he was 23 years old, reigning Ballon d'Or winner, already considered by many the best player in the world and even the most talent. And Real Madrid knew it. Madrid had been broken 5-0 5 months earlier by this same kid, and Mourinho had sworn it would never happen again. He promised control, he promised discipline, he promised revenge, and for an hour, it almost looked like he might get it. The match was tense, ugly, fouls everywhere, kicks, shoves, dives. Mourinho's Madrid weren't here to play, they were here to drag Barcelona into the mud, and it worked for a while. Barcelona couldn't find rhythm. Messi was kicked, hacked, doubled at every turn. Casillas roared at his defenders to stay compact. Pepe snarled. Mourinho smirked from the touchline, convinced his plan was working. But then came the red card. Pepe lunged in recklessly on Dani Alves. The referee pulled out a red card. Suddenly, the plan collapsed. Mourinho fumed on the touchline, pacing, raging, pointing to conspiracies. But deep down, he knew. Giving Messi even a sliver of space with 10 men was suicide. And that's when Messi delivered cruelty disguised as genius. 76th minute. A cutback rolled toward the penalty spot. Messi arrived, calm as ever, sliding it past Casillas. 1-0 Barcelona. A dagger to the Bernabeu's heart. But that was only the beginning. 82nd minute. Messi picked the ball up from Busquets near the halfway line. Xabi Alonso tried to foul him, failed. Lastiara lunged, missed. Ramos stretched, beaten. Albiol chased shadows. And then Casillas, Spain's captain, Madrid's wall, was left helpless as Messi slalomed past and rolled the ball into the net. The Bernabeu froze. It wasn't just a goal, it was a humiliation. A 60-yard run where Messi made world-class defenders look like schoolboys. For Madrid, it was déjà vu. For Messi, it was artistry. The scoreboard said 2-0. Truth was much worse. The tie was dead. Madrid were finished. And once again, Messi had done it in their own house. The image from that night still lingers. Messi, arms raised, face calm, as white shirts littered the background like wreckage. Mourinho, staring into the void, broken. Casillas, crouched, defeated. That wasn't just a semi-final. It was the night Messi turned the Champions League's biggest rivalry into his own personal gallery. Madrid thought this nightmare would fade. But the cruel truth? Every season, Messi came back to add another chapter. And this next one would hurt even more, because it wasn't just about goals. It was the moment Messi gave the internet an iconic pose that would haunt Madrid to date. Chapter 5. The shirt celebration. By 2017, Lionel Messi wasn't just Barcelona's star. He was Barcelona. Already 4 Ballons d'Or, countless records, and more Clasico goals than anyone in history. But Real Madrid had grown too. Cristiano Ronaldo was at his peak. Zinedine Zidane had returned as manager, and Madrid were on the verge of winning the league. The Santiago Bernabeu was buzzing with confidence. This wasn't the same helpless Madrid Messi had shredded in 2009 or 2010. This was a team of champions, and yet, Messi was about to carve their memory into history once again. The match itself was chaos from the start. Casemiro opened the scoring. Barcelona hit back. Sergio Ramos got himself sent off. Of course, he did. James Rodriguez equalised late, and the stadium shook with belief. 90 minutes gone. 2. Madrid were seconds from escaping with their pride intact. And then, silence. 92nd minute. Sergi Roberto picked up the ball in his own half and surged. The Bernabeu held its breath. One pass, then another. The ball found Jordi Alba, who squared it across the box. And there he was. Messi. Left foot. Bottom corner. Goal. The net rippled. Casillas wasn't there anymore, and the Bernabeu collapsed into stunned silence. Barcelona 3. Real Madrid 2. But the goal wasn't the humiliation. The humiliation came after. Messi walked calmly to the touchline, lifted his shirt, and held it high to the Madrid fans. Staring straight into their stands, the stadium booed, screamed, cursed. But the image was eternal. The smallest man on the pitch holding up his shirt, saying without words, "This is mine. This is my stadium now." It wasn't just a celebration. It was a declaration of dominance. Cristiano had his leaps, Ramos had his roars. Messi had silence. Silence so loud, it shook Madrid to its core. The photo went around the world. Kids on playgrounds copied it. Fans printed it on banners. Even Madridistas, though they'd never admit it, knew they'd witnessed something immortal. Because that night, Messi didn't just score a last-minute winner in El Clasico. He signed his name, again, across Real Madrid's history. But if you thought that was the peak, Messi still had more humiliation left in him, because even in the twilight of his Barcelona career, when everyone thought Madrid had finally learned to contain him, he came back to remind them, you can't cage inevitability. Chapter 6. The war Madrid couldn't win. Lionel Messi wasn't just Barcelona's crown jewel, he was Real Madrid's curse, a painful thorn in their side. Year after year, coach after coach, Florentino Perez kept reshuffling his empire, trying to solve one problem. How do you stop Messi? And every attempt ended the same way, with Madrid humiliated. Take 2014 for example. Messi v Marcelo, Brazil's captain, Madrid's warrior. On paper, the perfect antidote to Messi. In reality, a highlight reel of humiliation. In one Clásico alone, Messi nutmegged him 3 times. Not once, not twice, 3. By the third, Marcelo just stopped running, shoulders slumping, because what's the point of chasing a ghost you can't catch? Or Sergio Ramos, the enforcer, Madrid's heartbeat. Across 44 Clásicos, he hacked, tugged, fouled, and fought Messi with everything he had. He collected yellows, reds, and even bans, building a personal highlight reel of tactical fouls. And yet, here's the kicker. Messi scored more goals against Ramos than any other defender in his career. The man who defined Madrid's fight spent over a decade being defined by his failure to contain one player. And then there were the numbers. Cold, merciless. Most goals in Clásico history, Messi. Most assists, Messi. Most dribbles completed, Messi. But the stat that burns deepest in Madridistas' hearts, Messi has scored more goals at the Santiago Bernabeu than most of Real Madrid's own legends. Their house, their fortress, redecorated by an Argentine, 5'7" tall. So Madrid threw money at the problem. 500 million euros in Galacticos, new managers, new systems. But here's what Florentino Perez eventually admitted. None of it worked. Even when he left Barcelona, Madrid thought they were free. Then came 2022. PSG versus Real Madrid in the Champions League. And who was waiting? Messi. He didn't even need to score. One run, one disguised assist, and Madrid were undone again. This was more than football. This was psychological warfare. Marcelo, Ramos, and Florentino weren't just facing a rival. They were living inside his shadow. Every plan was a reaction to him. Every lineup change, every transfer splurge, every coaching hire whispered the same truth. Real Madrid's empire was being bent, reshaped, and broken by one man. Messi didn't just score goals against Madrid, he rewrote their history. And when the day finally came that Messi left Barcelona, Madrid fans celebrated like it was a trophy. But deep down, they knew the truth. You don't celebrate when a nightmare ends. You celebrate because for nearly 20 years, Lionel Messi was the god who ruled Madrid's fate. Chapter 7. Legacy of a nightmare. When Lionel Messi left Barcelona in 2021, the city wept. For culés, it was the end of an era, the last page of a story written in goals, trophies, and miracles. But in Madrid, the reaction was different. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, they celebrated as if they'd won a trophy. The nightmare was finally over. Because here's the truth, Messi didn't just beat Real Madrid, he rewired them. For 18 years, the most successful club in football history, the club of Di Stefano, Raúl, Zidane, Cristiano, lived under the shadow of a 5'7" Argentine who turned their fortress into his playground. The numbers alone are merciless. 45 matches against Real Madrid, 26 goals. The all-time record in El Clásico, 14 assists. Second only to himself in impact. 65% win rate against the toughest opponent Barcelona ever faced. 19 trophies won in El Clásicos alone. 11 Madrid coaches fired during Messi's era, all branded failures for not finding an answer. 37 defenders nutmegged, each one a small humiliation. A reminder that even Madrid's best were just training cones in his highlight reel. But numbers only scratched the surface. Messi didn't just score, he humiliated. He stood still while 4 defenders panicked around him. He dragged Ramos across 44 Clásicos, fouled, hacked, kicked, and still walked away with more goals against him than any other defender in history. That's the kind of dominance that goes beyond football. That's mythology. For Barcelona fans, Messi's departure was heartbreak. For Madrid, it was relief. But relief is only possible when the suffering was real. And that's Messi's legacy in El Clasico. He wasn't just Barcelona's god, he was Madrid's curse. For nearly 2 decades, Lionel Messi made the biggest club in world football look small. Ryan Giggs once said, "You can stop every other player in the world if you prepare enough. But with Messi, you just pray." And against Real Madrid, those prayers went unanswered. For 18 years, Lionel Messi didn't just beat Real Madrid, he traumatized them. He made the Bernabeu his code playground and turned Galacticos into victims. Every Madrid coach had a Messi plan. None of them worked. Every Madrid defender has a Messi nightmare. Most have several. And the craziest part? Real Madrid spent billions trying to find their own Messi. They bought Ronaldo, Bale, Hazard and Mbappe. But deep down, they knew the truth. There's only one player in history who could walk into the home of the world's biggest club and make them look ordinary. And he did it 45 times. That's not just dominance, that's ownership.